All right, so Eagan, you made a compelling argument, a little bit too compelling if you ask me, because now it's got me scratching my head on all those course things that I've got outlines for, but I've never actually fleshed them out. I need to get them going,
That's right. Got to get your info product empire.
Yeah, well, exactly, because it's leaving money and opportunity on the table.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the idea is when you have info products that you sell, it could be books, it could be in-person trainings, it could be e-courses, which I definitely recommend if you have a penchant for that at all, you're interested in that. It's just when you do that, you introduce paid ads as a channel versus it's a little more touch and go. If you're a financial advisor, you want to pay to send people to your site, they can look at your site and then they know darn well that if they fill out that contact form, you're going to schedule coffee with them and you're going to sell them on XYZ on investments and things like that, right? Mm-hmm. It's this nice in-between micro conversion of someone will exchange their information for, some free education, free information from you. And they may spend a little bit of money, $50, $100, $250, whatever, on learning more, trying to do it themselves. And some of those people will graduate and say, wow, you really know your stuff. Why don't you do it for me?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about your journey because you hinted last week that you how did you get into this? Because you were a history major in college?
That's right. Political science and history. I thought I was going to be a professor.
Wow. So how'd you stumble into this gig?
After college, I was working for a nonprofit in the Twin Cities in Minnesota, helping low-income kids get into college. So it was like an AmeriCorps volunteer thing for 2 years. And then really needed to make some money after that to start paying off student loans and things. Learned about Epic, which is basically, the big employer here in Madison. So that's how I went from Minneapolis to Madison. Did that for 5 years. And that's kind of it's a high, what would you say? High expectation, high burnout kind of place. And 5 years, you're an old vet there.
Oh yeah. You're way beyond vet status.
And I was old when I started. So, I was really old by the end.
Yeah.
That's where all my hair went, if you were wondering.
Yeah.
Yeah. But while I was there, I really, I read Tim Ferriss, The 4-Hour Workweek, just randomly. Saw it in the library, actually. I don't think I'd even heard of it before. I just saw it and I was like, what is that about?
Right.
So there was something about the marketing of just that title and just maybe you'd say the brand of the book, it jumped out from the shelves. And I read it, and I think it's fair to say it changed my life. And I went down that rabbit hole of who are these internet entrepreneurs that travel the world and, live anywhere kind of thing and work from their laptop. That sounds pretty good when you're, traveling around, consulting with hospitals, living out of hotels kind of thing. How can you get that kind of location independence, that kind of freedom? And in the book, Tim Ferriss talks about Google Ads, pay-per-click advertising. And when he wrote that book, that was, I think, 10 years ago plus, Google Ads it was normal to pay a few cents a click.
Right.
And that world's really changed because everybody got wise to that. And now it's a few dollars a click. That's pretty normal now. So it's much harder to play that game. But the idea is still there with Facebook ads, with Instagram ads, with all kinds of other things, right? Mm-hmm. And kind of learned, went down the rabbit hole, learned about the Tropical MBA podcast, which is sort of that next step. I think I'd searched the podcast app. This is like plug for podcast SEO, right?
Right.
I searched 4-Hour Workweek. I don't think Tim Ferriss had a podcast back then.
Right.
He's got one of the top ones now, but what came up was the Tropical MBA. And there's this whole universe of people that will go live in Thailand, live in South America, live in Spain and kind of work from their laptops.
Yeah.
And one of the things they said on that podcast at one point was, you really want to start a business, you start with services because it's faster.
Yeah, because also you don't have to have inventory of physical product that has to be built by someplace that is expensive. It can go obsolete. Services, you can pivot on a dime.
Yeah. You can make a sale and your people will put you to work right away. And so I got into it and they said, start with SEO. That's really the way to go. And so I did and started this SEO company. I built getfoundmadison.com, the website that's still there. I built that, the Monday after the Friday that I was done in June 2016.
Wow.
I was ready to go on it and just went down the rabbit hole, learning the Moz guide, which is a great, the Moz beginner's guide, MOZ.
Right.
Beginner's guide to SEO, to search engine optimization, and just really went down the rabbit hole from there and ended up loving it. And now I'm very confident that it's I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, and it's a good feeling.
You're driving your own bus. You're not working for somebody. Well, you're working for other people.
For clients, yep.
Right, but you don't have a boss that's essentially draining your life essence for their benefit. One of
the things Tim Ferriss talks about in the 4-Hour Workweek is getting that time freedom. Is when somebody pays you money to get something done, they don't necessarily care that you're at the office at 8 o'clock. They just want the results.
Right.
They just want to make sure it's done. You can do it your own way. And that was very appealing. And it has been. It's great. And I work from home most days and I love it.
This episode of the NonFiction Brand podcast is brought to you by NonFiction Brandversity. It's a free Facebook group dedicated to the art and craft of personal branding, and we'd like to invite you. Just search NonFiction Brandversity on Facebook and ask to join. You're in, guaranteed. I can't wait to see you on campus. How long have you been doing Get Found Madison?
This is the 4th year now, and we've got a team of 4 now. So I've got full-time employees that work out of Starting Block, which is the co-working space in Madison there, and they're helping me a lot. So it's come a long way. I don't know if I could have imagined. I think in that first year, I still kind of had backup plans. Am I going to go back into the epic world of healthcare software consulting? There's kind of that feeling. You're like, I have a backup plan. I can always go back to it. And yeah. It was maybe 2.5 years in, I realized I'm never going back. Like, this is it now. I'm all in on digital marketing and I love it.
I watch, we all have different stuff in our feeds. One of my favorite guilty pleasures is when I hit Facebook, and I'm not a huge Facebook user, but whenever I do head over to Facebook on my phone, I'll get sucked over into that video feed. And for some reason, they pegged me as a Steve Harvey guy. So I've got all these clips of Ask Steves, and one I've learned to really appreciate is kind of street wisdom, folk wisdom, I would almost call it. But one of his things is there is no plan B. There's only another plan A. You go after plan A until you can't do it anymore. And then the next one's your next plan A.
That's good.
You never have a plan B because you will always give up on your dream.
Yep.
To not achieve that plan B, but settle for plan B.
I'm good friends local here with a guy who's a high school guidance counselor, and we talk about this. And certainly the rule of thumb among teachers and definitely high school counselors is got to have a backup plan, And I wonder if that's good advice. Not for everybody.
I frankly, without going into too much detail, my people, if you go back far enough, came across in Viking longships, to places like England and I don't know, maybe Iceland and Greenland and stuff like that. We're really
going back. I like this.
Yeah, way, way back. And the story goes that they would get there and then burn their longships on the beach because we weren't going back. We're coming to conquer. And I wish I had that when I was a far younger man. I wish I had really embraced that. I don't have any regrets where I am now because where I was then, I would not be here now if I were not there then. But at the same time, that power of understanding, the drive and focus of this is my plan A and I'm going to do it, that is power. When you commit to yourself like that, and when you start visualizing your success based on your plan A, guess what's going to happen? I don't know. Who's the comedian who did the movie The Mask? Jim Carrey.
Right. Yeah.
Talk about a visualizer. He, as a broke comedian / actor in Hollywood, took one of his own bank checks, made it out to him for $10 million. He dated it for Thanksgiving a couple years in advance of whatever year he did it, put it in his wallet, kept it there. And 20 days before Thanksgiving that year, he got his first $10 million movie.
Wow.
I mean, he just plain willed that into being, so that whole plan A, plan B thing. Well, here's the thing. Once you get a sense of what it is to drive your own bus and invite other people on it, you've invited 4 new people onto your bus.
That's right.
It's impossible to climb onto someone else's bus and truly be fulfilled, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the people who take your courses or the people who are engaging with you on your webinars, what are they looking for? Or what is your best value? What are you sharing with your audiences that people are resonating with?
I think, I'm in Madison, at least I'm really known as the Google guy, as the SEO marketing guy. And so I try to bring that. I try to say there's other things you can do too. And that's what I get into in the full course. But I think showing those case studies, I'm a big believer in the results. And someone else I really learned from in the info product space is Eben Pagan, EbenPagan. And he says, people want results. Your product or your service is actually a barrier to them. So don't talk about all the features and benefits of what you're selling. Get them pumped about the results that you can help them achieve.
I'm going to take a little bit of issue with your nomenclature a little bit. Don't talk about your features. Focus on the benefits because the results are the benefit. One of the things when I talk to companies all the time, I will say, it's natural that you want to sell your features, but very few people buy your features. They want the benefits those features give you. So do I care that there's remote start on the car? Not as much as I care that, I can go out and have a warm car in the middle of winter. That's cool. It's a way to put yourself out of your engineer's head and into your buyer's head.
Right. Put it from their perspective.
Exactly.
I think that's what marketing is all about. And that's why it's such a fun challenge is you need to think like other people. You need to learn to think like other people. And it takes years and years to do that. And I can tell in the SEO world that manifests as someone comes to me and says, we do business process automation. We have some kind of business solution, blah, blah, blah. And I say, well, let's check the data. Looks like nobody Googles for that.
Yeah.
So the way you're talking is not the way your customers are talking. And if you want to do effective marketing, you need to learn voice of customer.
And if you want to know voice of customer, all you have to do is start doing what are people asking for related to your service? What is it? Ask the people.
Answer the public.
Answer the public. Thank you very much. Tell people about Answer the Public.
Yeah. If you go to answerthepublic.com, you can type in, what you offer, pest control or whatever it is, and it will show you the questions people are asking around the web about that subject. And those are great things to create. Those are great topics for YouTube videos and for blogs and all kinds of content marketing, because those are the questions people have. You meet them where they're at, you educate them, and then you take them further in your funnel.
All you need to do is figure out, here's an example of how that can work. Let's say that you're a plumber or something like that. Someone who has to deal with mold issues of any sort, whether it's related to moisture or whatever. What are people looking for? Mold mitigation? No, they're looking for things like, what does black mold look like?
Yeah, that's important.
Yeah, well, and all of a sudden you have a video that's literally titled, what does black mold look like?
Yeah.
What is going to score highest or very, very high on Google searches? Mm-hmm. 1, video. 2, the question that was asked verbatim and answered verbatim by the title of your video.
Yeah. And I wanted to ask you about something from last week. You said you love social media. I feel a little more ambivalent about it. And that might be another difference for us to discuss is I think informationally like that, like I'm thinking like Google. And by the way, YouTube's the number 2 search engine.
Right.
So when you make videos that answer people's questions, like that's just gold, right? I'm coming from that angle. You could make the case, is YouTube social or not? There's kind of elements of both, right? You're searching and you're liking and commenting and sharing. But when we're talking Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, I feel a little more ambivalent about it. So I wanted to ask, what do you love about it? And yeah, I just want to hear you talk about that.
Oh, this will be interesting because I don't actually love it. Here are the things I love about social media. The fact that no matter where you are, no matter what you do, no matter how much money you have or don't have, you have access to the entire linked world when it comes to the internet. You can create relationships from zero with people all around the world based on your interests, your abilities, your services, whatever. This is it's the first time in history where I can have a meaningful long-term relationship with friends in Australia that I've met person to person once several years ago. But that one-time face-to-face meet has developed over social media, into really great relationships. I love that part of social media, but I don't love social media. I hate to say it. I mean, Spencer X. Smith and I wrote a book about the return on investment, the ROI of social media, the return on top of mind awareness that you can get from social media.
Yeah, I've learned a lot from your books. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. But the reality is, I do it because that is the landscape. NonFiction Brand podcast listeners who listened a couple weeks ago to my conversation with Matthew Sweezy, his new book, The Context Marketing Revolution, know that he posits that there's a whole brand new game when it comes to marketing. And he's talking about marketing, and he points to a specific date as the date where there's an inflection point between the return on traditional marketing and how things have changed. So I invite everyone to check out those episodes with Matthew Sweezy. His book, fantastic. The Context Marketing Revolution. I'm so careful saying that because I'm so used to saying content marketing.
Right. That's kind of that hair now.
Yeah, well, exactly. But he's talking about, no, it's all about context.
Yeah.
It's all about the journey, the customer journey, if you will, which links right into the whole funnel philosophy and things like that. What I love about the conversation I had with him was, it was like, no, you don't get it. You don't have to like social media, but you have to do it. And by social media, I just mean digital media.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I don't know about you. I'm having conversations all the time where people have not crossed over. Like they have a website and that's really it. Still, it's 2020.
And this is why Matthew wrote this book, this new book. It's like, no, you don't understand. The game has changed. We may have been playing football in the past. Now we're fly fishing. And so everything you know, some of it's transferable in some ways. I mean, if you knew how to make good videos 20 years ago, that hasn't changed. Good storytelling, good use of visuals and graphics and all that stuff to capture people's attention. But if you're relying on capturing people's attention, you've already lost, because we live in the most visually, conceptually, graphically polluted environment in the history of humankind. So there has to be, dare I say it, there has to be a little bit of programmatic marketing planning so that you're not just throwing dust in the wind, you're actually aiming specifically at specific people who are the most likely to engage with you, to convert, to become, users of your product or buyers of your services.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I want to have part 2 of that discussion, because it sounds like the way you're thinking about LinkedIn and social media is it's a digital extension of networking. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's hugely important. Number one, it will not surprise you, because we see each other around town at networking events, that networking has been a big part of my last, I'm going to say 3 years. But my career is actually 27 years.
Right.
So where the heck was my networking? 24 years of networking I didn't do. That's lost opportunity. Those are sunk costs. I can't get those back. But the reality is, I have now learned that the networking part, the making associations, the building my personal brand, my awareness with other people, my reputation. Some people will say, yeah, it's important that people know my reputation. And I'll say, reputation's part of your brand. The way you talk is part of your brand. The way you smile is part of your brand. The fact that you always tell a joke when you meet people and they think of you as a funny person, that's part of your brand. That differentiates you from anybody else who does what you do.
Was there a day where you woke up, or there was a moment where you realized, like, I don't have a personal brand and I want one?
Yeah. And people have heard me tell this story, I think even on the podcast, a couple of times, where I call them your X years. When you get old enough, and by the way, this won't be telling tales out of school, but Eagan's significantly younger than me. And we don't need to go into actually, cut off my leg and count the rings. But let's just say there's at least a decade or so involved. And here's the thing. Working in creative departments at advertising agencies, I was always an engine, behind the walls. My clients that I would present to knew me very well. They always responded very well. I think they respected me. They knew who I was, what I do, and how I do it. Well, when you reach the X years, you are experienced, you're excellent at what you do, you're expensive, and therefore expendable. Because, whenever an ad agency loses a client, what happens to the headcount in every department in the ad agency? We need to cut some heads. And then they look at the spreadsheet and go, yeah, but if we get rid of the expensive guy, we don't have to lose all these other people. So we'll just get a younger, faster, fresher, and half the price person to fulfill that role. Well, I was well known internally at the ad agencies I worked with the clients that I worked with, but unknown outside of it. That did not serve me well.
Sure.
And so if you ask, was there a day when you recognized that networking was important? That was the day. And consequently, things kicked into gear big time about 3-4 years ago. Hey, NonFiction Branders, did you know I wrote a book? Well, I did, and it's called Rotoma, the ROI of Social Media Top of Mind. I wrote it with my colleague Spencer X. Smith, and it's all about Rotoma, an acronym that means Return on Top of Mind Awareness. Best-selling author and NYU Stern School of Business professor Scott Galloway called it a book that starches the fluff from social media and helps managers allocate capital and find the unicorn among unicorns, ROI. And Chief Content Officer at Marketing Profs, Ann Handley, said, this isn't just a practical way to think about the return on social media, it's also a spot-on, accurate way to reframe your social efforts. Check out all the 5-star reviews on Amazon by searching Rotoma, ROTOMA. Pick up your copy today and start building your personal, professional, and small business brand the Rotoma way.
it sounds like you're a big believer in personal brand, whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an employee.
Absolutely.
Everybody's got to have it for those reasons.
Well, for instance, Eagan Heath, here we are, Eagan Heath. I know you. I've seen you around. I've seen you speak, all that stuff. I've already developed some opinions about you that some I'll keep to myself, but others I'll share. One of which is you're more on the analytical side of the fence than perhaps the purely creative side of the fence, in terms of typography and graphics and storytelling and all that stuff. I would come to you if I said, Eagan, I really need to sell more of X, and I'm willing to do some type of plan with an offer, but I don't know what that offer should be or the best way to get that out there. My experience with you, I've never asked you this question. My experience with you is that you would come back and say, you know what, DP, I can work with you. Here's what it would cost. Here's what the expected return might be. I can't guarantee that, but based on my experience and my expertise and these case stories and studies, you can expect a return somewhere in this ballpark. Could be as high as X plus 10, could be X. And I know that of you, and yet I don't know you. Am I anywhere in the ballpark of who Eagan Heath is?
You're saying as a professional, as a person?
As a professional, yeah. As someone whose services I might seek out.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think I am far on the analytical side of marketers, yeah.
Yeah, so all of a sudden, you're not an SEO smoke and mirrors guy. You're a SEO, I'm showing you the numbers guy. Mm-hmm. There are plenty of SEO smoke and mirrors people.
Right.
So all of a sudden, you've differentiated yourself, in my mind, simply by the fact that I've seen you around, I've heard you talk, I've seen some of the things you've posted, the conversations we've had and stuff like that. You have effectively built a brand in my mind without trying to build a brand. Now, what if you actually had a plan to build that brand specifically on exactly who you are, what you do, and how you do it? To build a completely true, completely you personal brand. You are now so much more valuable, even if you wanted to go back into an organization. I'm looking on your face right now, and you're saying, "I'm not going back. Yeah. No way." But
I go on as consultant CMO for companies sometimes, so it's it's like you're kind of in both worlds, right? You need to learn that brand, you need to do that. Yeah, that's pretty interesting. I think where you really get me, and I'm really hooked, is that piece on this is how you decommoditize yourself.
Yeah.
Of everybody's getting this. I hear this all the time is we're getting calls every week from SEO, blah, blah, blah. And we don't trust them. We don't know them from Adam. And we just we don't engage with that. And we're getting 12 LinkedIn connections a day from people in India. And it's just we don't know the difference. We can't differentiate them.
Yep.
But if I'm able to be consistent in the way I speak, in public talks or things like that, or like you said, what I'm posting on LinkedIn, then we're adding brand premium in there, and we don't have to be the cheapest in town anymore.
Well, let me ask you this. If I said you're Eagan Heath, the SEO guy, well, who's more valuable? Eagan Heath, the SEO guy, or Eagan Heath, the 10x return guy?
I'm thinking 10x return.
Darn right. Wouldn't and any business owner, you mean if I spend $1 with you, I'm going to get a 10x return back?
We've done it before.
Bada bang. That's the difference. You all of a sudden SEO is a commodity. It's like plumbing.
Yeah. You can go on Upwork. You can hire whatever dollar an hour you want for SEO, and you'll get what you pay for.
Right. It's like you can go to a clinic and, get your throat swabbed if you think you have strep throat. But if you have cancer or suspect you might want to go see a specialist.
Ah, yes.
It's always better to be the doctor than the clinic.
But brand is you're a specialist and you have a distinct approach.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, for instance, again, you're more analytical. I'm not going to expect necessarily the warm hand-holding of an SEO firm that's all about helping you understand all the nuances of all that stuff. I'm expecting, I'm going to see numbers on a spreadsheet. You're going to help me understand them, but you're not going to handhold me and blow confetti in my face.
Yeah, I'm thinking even just graphic design agencies that we partner with that we know well. Of the cultures are different. The people are different who are drawn to graphic design versus search marketing.
Absolutely. And consequently, the value of you to your best audience is you aren't going to sugarcoat stuff. You're going to tell us the truth. You aren't going to be mean about it. You're not going to be mad. You're not going to treat us like we're idiots. But if you're going to say, I don't recommend this, and here are the 5 reasons why, all tied to dollars, oh, you're helping me out. And believe me, and this is part of my brand, I sum up my brand in 3 words: creative, collaborative, and provocative. I'm on the creative side of the fence. Don't expect spreadsheets from me. I'm collaborative in that I always work with other people, even though I work alone. And then provocative, I'm always going to poke you in the eye every once in a while or punch your baby in the face because I want you to think, really, is that true? Is that assumption correct? Are you sure that's the best way to go? That doesn't mean I'm going to be a jerk about it.
Yeah, it's just baby punching marketing.
Yeah, that's right. Baby punching marketing. I'm getting that tattooed on my forehead. But seriously, because there are plenty of hand holders. There are plenty of, we'll do whatever you tell us to do. But there aren't a whole lot of, that's a good idea, but let's look at it in terms of brand alignment with the brand, the true nonfiction brand that is completely true, completely you. There's a reason this podcast is called the NonFiction Brand Podcast, Eagan.
And we've arrived at it, I see.
Yeah, and we've arrived more or less at the end of it.
Well, that's good. Well, I think you've made a good case. Particularly, you're kind of holding up the mirror and saying, Eagan, you're not just doing direct response. I've done branding too, and that's
right.
Me.
Well, and if you walk out of here with one thing, it's like, I'm Eagan Heath, the 10x return guy. And, maybe you don't want to say 10x because you can't guarantee that. But if you're all about returns,
we're definitely measured marketing of we'll show you what you made back. That's the idea.
Right. So get found Madison. What's the benefit of getting found in Madison? Returns as high as 25x.
That you can prove. Yep.
Yeah. Because all of a sudden that invites tell me about that 25x return story. Well, we've got a 1-sheet device, printed out device. Let me walk you through it. It becomes a residual physical thing. Don't do everything digitally because we're humans. We live in the carbon-based world. Some of your marketing has to be actually physically based.
Yeah, you've just cemented that for me too. I've had a few people tell me that, and now I'm actually going to do it.
Oh my gosh. Don't even get me started on business cards. I like to say, if you don't exist in the real world in the form of a business card, you don't exist. Because what happens when your business card sits on my desk and gets shuffled under papers, and all of a sudden I find it 3 months later? I make the reacquaintance. If we were only connected on LinkedIn, I can't tell you the last time I looked at all the connections I have on LinkedIn. I don't. I'm not a sales navigator guy who's constantly mining my LinkedIn connections, which is maybe a mistake, but that's me. And that's also wrapping up this episode of the NonFiction Brand Podcast. I'm, of course, DP Knudten, and I'm your host with the Not So Most, but I am here to ask you to like, subscribe, refer, and review the podcast because that does help people find it. And also, I want to say a big thank you to Eagan Heath. Eagan, how can people follow you online?
Yeah, the best way if you want to get hold of me is just Eagan, EAGAN, at getfoundmadison.com. Otherwise, connect with me on LinkedIn and check out our website, getfoundmadison.com.
Well, there you have it. Once again, it's been a delight to talk to Eagan, the 10X guy. I'm DP Knudten, and he is
Eagan Heath. Thanks so much for having me on.
And I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye-bye.